Okay, look, a handout is being passed down. Please pass it.
You guys, you do know that I'm leaving next year. Okay.
Those reflexes.
January.
For anybody who comes in who may be straggling, I'm going to put some extras right here. You all can put the extras there as well. Grab them and then.
So we made a parking lot. It's on my whiteboard.
Great.
Thank you, Joanna.
Parking lot.
Thank you, Mr. Michael.
Okay. If y'all can go ahead and just like put tech away, this will be a no tech session. So that way you can be all in. And then if anyone comes in, if you can just like subtly direct them to pick up a packet so they've got one for this session. I'm excited to jump in. I don't think I fully knew the barge analogy that Matt was going to be using at the start of his session. But I'm excited that I get to be the increase of torque. That's the term, torque. I get to help with staff-facing increasing of the torque. So, yeah, nice. I'm doing that part. So we're going to start off with just a question here. And so when you all think of a truly excellent classroom, like you can be like thinking your classroom or a classroom that you've observed, but when you are thinking of a truly excellent classroom, what does it look like, sound like, feel like? Just take the next minute or so, jot down as many ideas as you can on that first page of your handout. What does it look like, sound like, feel like? I'm going to push y'all to be as specific as you can here. So I'm seeing like joy and fun, which is awesome. What does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? How do you know it's a joyful classroom if you were to walk in? Give about 15 more seconds to get as many of those ideas on the page. Okay, so now I want you to turn and talk to the person that's next to you. Compare your charts with your partner. Where do your all's visions align? Where do they misalign? Go ahead and start comparing those, and you can even keep a tally in the space provided. So where do those align? Where do they misalign? Go ahead and talk it out. Go.
It looks like I see students on the game, students
There's smiling, there's laughing, active participants, and then golf oriented participants.
I said academic language can be heard during turning talks, holding discussions, I disagree because I agree that's what I'm
Like content-based language, like I don't mind if you're talking, as long as you're talking, I think, or like speaking it like
Yeah, it was way off. What Alfred feels like.
Okay, gotta bring it back up here in 5, 4, 3,
inviting.
2. Thank you all. Did anybody have the exact same list as their partner? They're like, you know what, 1 to 1. We had some closest. Did anybody have a radically different list than their partner? No. Okay. So we're gonna circle back to this idea of what an excellent classroom looks like, and it's really gonna be the grounding force for this session today. But our real first core idea is this: consistency is what transforms average into excellence. Yeah, I don't know who said this, but when I Googled quotes about consistency, this one popped up and it didn't cite who it was. So, no clue who said it, but great, cool, that's not my quote.
That's a real one.
Great, cool. The purpose here, y'all, is that we want to all have the same vision of what excellence looks like. And in being consistent in implementing and feeling that version of excellence, that is what transforms us from average into excellence. That's what allows us to increase that torque. I'm going to continue with that analogy, but I still don't really know what torque is. But it's okay. They would say it on Fast and the Furious. That's all I know. Okay, and so with that, through that consistency, we're able to hit this mission. We've seen this many, many times. But this will allow us to be that highest performing non-emotions-based public high school. This is what will allow us to challenge students to be their higher selves and graduate empowered, okay? But it really does start with this consistent vision of excellence. And so our objective for today is going to be for you all to articulate the criteria for success for providing instructional feedback to a colleague during a peer observation. And so in order to do this, a couple of things. We're going to start with some framing. It's going to be probably more extensive framing than we normally do in a session, but I think that this is really important. We'll talk about our quarter 2 observation push, and then we'll go through some observation feedback criteria for success before closing out. Any questions, thoughts, compliments before we jump in?
I like your hair.
Thank you. Oh, thank you guys.
Looks fluffy.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Okay, let's jump in. So I want to start, if you flip to page 2, there's space for you to take notes. These can be as in-depth or shallow as you want them to be. But I want to start by grounding us in some data. And so for those of you who are new to KIPP, twice a year we do what's called the TNTP survey. It's this long survey. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. Every KIPP school and the network does it. And the purpose is for us to really see where are our growth areas as a school and where are we succeeding as a school. And it's opportunity for you all to provide direct feedback, for us as a leadership team to see it, as a region to see it, and then to start making moves, ideally to respond to your feedback, okay? And so I want to zero in on 2 specific survey items from the last couple of years. So the first is this idea of a learning environment. So across my school, there are consistent expectations and consequences for student behavior. This was something that was talked a lot about in math session, okay? And then I don't think that we're gonna be surprised by the numbers we're about to see. So in the spring of 2022, so this was not last school year, but the end of the school year before, 49% of staff agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. So still less than 50. In the fall of last year, 36% agreed with that, so a 13% decrease. And then last year, at the end of last year, 29% agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. I think if we were to do a pulse check now, our numbers would be comparable, if not lower. And that's a problem. And that directly aligns to what we talked about in terms of what is an excellent classroom and having that common vision. Related to that, within the peer culture section, teachers at my school share a common vision of what effective teaching looks like. Similarly, spring of 2022, 51, dropped to 24. So the spring of 2023, we're at 29. These were our two lowest performing buckets on the TNT last year. And so these are the two that we're gonna go after this year. And so I also wanna just name one other thing, because we went all in on this over summer break, during summer PD when we were trying to really norm as a school of how do we respond and how do we engage. And so on our September 1st experience survey, we had that question of there are consistent expectations and consequences for student behavior. This was less than a month into the school year. And we were at 52.2% agree and strongly agree. So from that day to now, something happened. And we're gonna fix it. But it is gonna take all of us in increasing our torque. Again, I'm just gonna continue to use that term, I don't know. But we're gonna increase our torque in order to do it. And so, I'm gonna give you time to just talk about with the person next to you, not talk about the person next to you, to talk with the person next to you. What's the felt impact of inconsistent expectations on student culture and then on staff culture? What is the felt impact of this? Because we're feeling it every day. Go ahead and talk it out with the person next to you. Go.
The drops quickly. So staff morale drops. That's when you get the negative indicators. That's when clicks form. That's when people begin to have break room talk, the air quotes, and that spills over on students. If students see that we as staff are inconsistent, not only with ourselves, holding ourselves accountable, and also holding them accountable, they're not going to hold themselves accountable. Right? We're the examples, and we're not doing it.
I think it does start to create divides, student culture-wise. They start to pick out, like, who are the teachers who I can more or less manipulate, right? Like, I know that they're not expectation. And for staff, it starts to create divides. It's like, I'm not holding up your end of the bargain.
To paraphrase something that I heard as I was circulating, and also being mindful that I'm filming this session and Matt is evaluating us for PIR. No, I don't have to. But to paraphrase somebody, they said it feels like ass. I'll be here all week. That's actually But I think that the overarching sentiment is it's not good. Like, we are feeling it. We are tired. And in order for us to get out of it, like, it is gonna take some time. It's gonna take some work, and it's gonna take us being even more tired probably before we can get untired. And I'm hoping with this session we can do it in a more positive and supportive way to sort of get through this tired, this worn out stage. And so our goals. We've got two goals here. One of them you've seen before, which is our learning environment goal. On our spring TNTP survey, we want to get 53% of our staffers agreeing or strongly agreeing with the idea that we've got consistent expectations and consequences. That will take us higher than what we were before, in that peak year, spring 2022. Still not like amazing, but significantly better. And so to benchmark that, we're wanting a 40% on the fall. And then for peer culture, on our fall TNCP, we also want 40% of staff members agreeing or strongly agreeing with that statement of we have a common vision for what effective teaching looks like. But in order to get that vision, we gotta work together to create it and then uphold it, and then that's where the consistency piece comes in. So, we're gonna kick off our Q2 observation challenge. For those of y'all who were here last year, this is something that we did, and it was really great. And so I'm really excited to bring it back as an opportunity to celebrate each other, get into each other's rooms, and really like just put some shine on all the great things that we're doing as a school. I'm also realizing that like not looked at you all at all. Terrible presenting skills. And so this is often I feel like how we feel when we're we'll kill you with consistent expectations. But we don't want this to feel like this, because I've definitely been there when I'm teaching and I'm getting observed, or I've got SLT doing a walkthrough, and all of a sudden we're having a beautiful discussion, and then 3 kids just start walking around the room for no reason, and you're like, I don't what happened? Why? What are you doing? And so I want these observations. They're not meant to be evaluative. They're not meant to, find all the flaws. They're meant for us to support one another. Okay, get into the classroom, steal the great things that are happening, and then even say, hey, you know what? Yeah, you had 3 kids walk around. I've done this, and that has gotten them to stay in their seats. Like, maybe try that, and I can help you in practice. And so our goal, it's a little bit loftier than we had last year, but I think we'll hit it.
400.
It's okay. Mathematically, it comes down to like less than 2 a week, which will, and SLT logs ours, everyone logs theirs. We'll be great. We'll get there, y'all. We'll get there. We also have longer to do it than we did last time, so that's also something. We've got over a month. We did not have a month last time. So 400 logged observations between the first day we get back in November 21st. There will be weekly prizes for individuals, grade teams, departments, and then we'll have a whole staff prize. Still figuring that out, what exactly that'll be, but some good food or something else. We'll figure. I will get your all's ideas what you all want for if we hit that goal. And just in terms of some logistics, and I will give more logistics when we come back, but you'll be logging observations in a staff observation survey. We'll get that in Q2. They will be aligned to some of our ARC2 goals, but as we're still really fleshing out like strong start, there will be some questions about that. Shout out all the wonderful things that you're seeing people do. What we'll do is like similarly to last year, we're gonna display these shout outs publicly. They're gonna be on our door frames. We're gonna be seeing them. And so make sure, and we won't go through, we won't proofread them. So just make sure. And then a newer part of this is providing that supportive feedback of where we can get even stronger. We're adding on to this. Last year we really just emphasized the great things we're seeing, which is awesome. We're now going to build with that on like how can we even support each other to get even better. This work can feel really isolating and we can really silo. And if we're in each other's rooms, like we can really start to norm and figure out what does it look like to be in a truly excellent, joyful classroom. And so that's the goal. And I'm excited. I'm very, very excited. I love this. Mostly because I love competition and pitting people against each other. It's my passion. Any questions or thoughts about this before we transition to the second part of my session today? Dalton and Lamar.
So you're saying less than 2 a week, is that per person?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
400 just for Mr. Miller.
Yeah, all just you.
I texted you this as well, because I didn't write down anywhere, but last year we did a thing with this where like staff members took a survey about like, where do you feel like you do great in like these different areas, and
Yeah.
had it up, and so we could choose targeted observations for like, I wanna be able to grow in blank.
Yeah.
Again.
Absolutely, 100%, yeah. Okay, so now, with that, in order for this to be optimally effective, in addition to what Maura suggested just then, we have to know what it looks like to give quality observation feedback. We did practice over the summer regarding our feedback triggers and crucial conversations, but this was not wholly a part of it. So this is gonna be just a brief snapshot of what this can look like. And you're gonna see some radical vulnerability for me in a couple of ways during this session. So just be mindful, 2019 was a different time. Okay, so the first thing is I just wanna ground us in some of the stuff that Taylor talked about during the summer, which are the feedback types and the reasons we give feedback. And so one thing to really keep in mind is the purpose of this is for us to give appreciation and then culture-related feedback. That's what we're doing. Okay, we're getting into each other's rooms. This is not meant, we're not coaching, we're not evaluating. This is meant for us to support each other, okay? And then we all need to be committed to giving feedback for the right reasons, right? So it's like, I have a commitment to this school. I have a commitment to you as a colleague. I'm concerned for you as a colleague. I feel it's my responsibility as a member of this community to help you, to support you, okay? So that's really what we're driving towards with this challenge. Now with that, feedback, it's not always easy. So even with this, again, building off of what Taylor talked about, we're gonna have our triggers. Those truths, those relationships, those identity triggers. We're a quarter in, so we've established certain relationship dynamics with each other in the building, right? We have really started to shape our vision of who we are as a teacher. And so we need to be incredibly mindful of these when we're giving that feedback, okay? And so with that, y'all know what the acronym is for KIP, what it stands for?
Kids in Prison Program.
Besides that,
Knowledge is power.
not anymore. It is now keep it professional, please.
Yeah.
Look at you, yeah.
Okay, so this feedback, because we know that it's meant to be supportive, because we know that this is meant to be, I'm helping you, I'm working with you, this is not grounded in our personal relationship. And while it will be hard sometimes, like if you're getting feedback maybe from someone like is not on your grade team, or you're not always working with, or you haven't interacted a whole lot with in 320, and it can feel a little awkward to receive that feedback, if it's all grounded in professionalism, it's easier for us to maintain that idea of like, oh, they're doing this for the right reasons and not as a gotcha moment, okay? And so with that, if you look on, yes, Mr. Bahama.
I love something that you do. Always you go to my classes and I would say, you ask first, because it's in Spanish, what are they doing?
Yes.
Very important.
Yes.
What are they doing? And I can explain to you, and I feel so relieved because then you know what I do.
That is a great practice,
This is
yes.
a good thing.
If you all look at page 3 in your handouts, you are gonna see a real feedback email that I received in 2019. I went through like my archives to find it. And so I want you all to look it over. And then just like go through what makes this particularly effective feedback. There's space in the notes for you to like jot down, you can annotate, mark it up. But what makes this a particularly effective feedback email? Take the next 90 seconds to 2 minutes or so. More seconds, and then you'll talk out with the person next to you. fine if you're not completely through it. But go ahead and talk it out with the person next to you. What makes this observation feedback particularly effective? Talk it out with the person next to you. Go.
It was clear and concise.
This is recorded. This is the first year. Now, yeah. This is the email that maybe.
There's no gray area.
And one. Let's just popcorn share out. What are some of the things that makes this particularly effective? Feel free to just jump in, not over.
Glows and Grows were precise and very concise with what they were seeing and what you needed to do in terms of action steps.
They were grounded in concrete evidence.
No contradiction between one.
They gave action steps, so it's just not growth of things that you can change, but how to change it.
There may have been action steps, but there was also this sense of, what's the word I'm looking for, like camaraderie or like collaboration. It wasn't just do this, it was reach out if you wanna practice, and I think that that's a huge piece.
The action steps were rooted in the grows, so there wasn't a disconnect there.
There's also laughter and levity in this message. So you build this relationship.
Feedback does not have to be serious. You can have fun with it. If you ever received my goat emails, like, no. That's
There's also a clear narrative. It doesn't jump around.
Also things like the action steps are things that you could implement at the next class. They're bite-sized to move forward.
Equal glows and grows have been where you get a lot of one and not the other.
Yeah. So here are some of the criteria for success that I want us to keep in mind. We named a lot of them, some that are not captured up here, so definitely keep those in mind as well. But anytime we're doing this follow-up, I want us to keep these in mind. Again, it's that kid. Keep it professional, please. So the first, some best practices here. So email is okay. Actually, it's better than okay. I think, we spent a lot of time during summer PD talking about we go face-to-face for feedback and things. Observation feedback works a little bit different, just because I was in your room, I was taking notes, and so email is the easiest way for you to give that feedback quickly. I'll also name that we did the teacher survey at the beginning of the year where we named sort of our preferred method for feedback. I'm gonna send that out so you can also consult that as well. So maybe someone said, actually, I really like a Post-it whenever someone leaves instead of like the anxiety of waiting for an email. And so we can also tailor some of our feedback to sort of how people also like to receive it.
Not to all colleges.
Next, CC's our coach. This is not a gotcha thing. This is not I'm gonna tell your coach all the bad things that I just saw you do. That's not what this is meant to be. This is meant so that it helps with streamlined coaching. It also is like, it's looping them in. As you see, like, I think she even names this, like, additionally, I've CC'd your coach and MG, that was Mark, so that as you all norm, you can use these notes to guide support, right? So it's meant to be, this is a collaborative effort. And also, it's so that they know the great things that you're doing too. Like, I'm seeing you do great things. I want your coach to also know that I'm seeing these things. Glows and grows. So as Dalton pointed out, like, there needs to be a balance. This is not just I'm now gonna come and pick apart everything you do. You're also allowed to and encouraged to. Like, if you're like, you know what, that was just a great lesson. This is gonna be just a glow feedback email. That's fine. You don't have to spend 15, 20 minutes trying to think of, what did they do bad that I can like really just go in on? Like, you don't have to do that. It can be a positive experience of like, that was a great class and I'm excited I got to be in it. And then lastly, no, just kidding. Second to last, it needs to be specific and grounded in evidence. So you see she named specific people in here, she gave specific examples. And so grounding it in evidence is helpful. So if like you're like, there were 8 kids that are off task and you don't name what part of the lesson or maybe even who the students were, if you know their names, you're not always gonna know their names, but you can even say like what part of the room it was then that can be really helpful. So if the teacher is always just missing scanning this one section of kids, you can say like, great, I would incorporate that into your daily practice. And then lastly, solutions oriented. And so like you all name as well, this is not just here's all the things you did bad, but provide potential solutions in there. Be like, I'm here also to support you if you want to practice, if you want to do this. Sometimes my like feedback emails have been longer because I'm like, here was the small grow, but here's a really long way where I think potentially we can fix it. And like, here's my ideas, and I get a little wordy. And so like, but that is okay. Provide that support. And so a couple of additional just considerations here. The first is like, you don't have to give the action step. In fact, I would even caution against it. Like she did here, but like sometimes action steps can feel even like more, and it's more pressure, and it feels more formalized. And so you can provide like pro tips or here's support, but you don't need to necessarily label them as action steps because that can feel a little weightier.
Yeah, we were talking about how even just saying like, here are some things I noticed, if you want to get together and brainstorm action steps together, so it feels more of like a collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And so something to keep in mind there. Next, be mindful of balance and length of that feedback. And so choose like the highest leverage. You don't have to say every single thing you saw. Pick what you think is the most important, one or two things, and so you're not, especially so you're not like saying, I've got 2 flows, and then here are 9 grows, and so like it's a lopsided little table. We don't want that, and that's really demoralizing if you're receiving that. Yeah.
If you're struggling with balance and length, you can also root them in what we just finished with ARC 1 and things that they're doing well from ARC 1 or things that they're already starting to do for ARC 2, DDI. So you can also root that feedback into things that we've already been talking about.
Yeah. And then lastly, and I alluded to this a second ago, consider those feedback triggers and how they may color your perceived intent. I want us to be a school and a space where everybody feels comfortable and empowered to get into everybody's room, no matter the grade level, no matter the content. And so with that in mind, like just keep in mind your dynamic with people. Keep in mind, like if you understand that maybe like they had a tough quarter 1 and you don't want to like overload with that feedback, keep that in mind. Keep in mind like how you're giving your feedback, what your intent is, and what potential feedback triggers they may have or you may have, okay? So just keep that in mind, because that does play, that plays into how we receive feedback and if we are willing to implement it or not. Because who here has ever got feedback and they're like, oh, that person has no idea what they're talking about, I'm never gonna do that, they were here for 2 minutes. I've been there. So we don't want that to be our default whenever receiving these. And so what if, I did just want to put this consideration. So what if like you observe and then something happens where you feel like you need to give more sensitive or corrective feedback and it does feel more like a face-to-face? Talk to your coach. Your coach will have a better picture probably of sort of what is going on or like where that person is and like how to coach you through that. So definitely consult your coach if you think, oh, this may be not an email, this actually may be a crucial conversation, or this may be something that's elevated beyond just that blows and grows. Great. So now that we've sort of got our bucket of our criteria for success here, we're now going to practice. And so we're going to get...
Before we go to practice, can you maybe get on how do we respond to those emails once we receive them?
Oh, that's a great push. Absolutely. So great push that I did not think about, but I should have. So I think like expressing gratitude, like feedback is a gift. So like, and it doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, let me respond to every single point. But if you're like, hey, thanks, I appreciate you coming into my room. And if you've got questions about like their feedback, questions are okay. Questions are not always like a sign of being defensive. So you can say, hey, like you said this action step or you made this suggestion. Can you provide a little bit more clarity? Because I'm not fully sure what that looks like or what that means. And yeah, okay.
I would add also that if there's a place or a time where you know you're going to be implementing that feedback, so if you were given a specific lesson structure feedback and you're having a similar kind of lesson later in the week, you can say like, I'm gonna try this on Tuesday in this block, I would love for you to come back.
Yeah.
And the other thing just like that piggybacks off that a little bit is try to implement the feedback, right? Like try to implement it. And if it works, great. If it works partially and you need more feedback, ask for that second follow up. And if it truly just doesn't work or have an impact, well, now you know that too, right? But it only happens if we actually try to implement it.
I've given feedback to coaches and they've tried to implement it and been like, yeah, that didn't work. And I'm like, okay, great, let's try something else. And it's okay, because it's not going to go perfectly the way we intended every single time. And so, but if we're trying, if we are going in with that idea of like, it's well intended. Also ask your coach, especially if like you feel like you are responding in a way that's indicative of a feedback trigger. Go to your coach. Like, talk to your coach. Be like, hey, I got this email, you were CC'd on it. I don't think, and like, they can help process that with you. Okay, so now we're gonna get an opportunity to practice crafting. I'm gonna say an email, but they'll just be taking notes. Feedback based on a short video. And so as you watch this video, I want you to capture any feedback, both affirming and adjusting, that you would provide to the beautiful teacher. You're gonna practice what giving that feedback will look like after. This is from like 2019, so just extend me grace. Hair was a different length. I'm not entirely sure what the pants I'm wearing. But it's gonna be great. So it's about 3 minutes, so let's enjoy. Ooh. Hold on 1 second. I already changed it. Sorry, y'all. I already tested this. The bell's gonna ring in just a moment. Oh, Quiana? Hey, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're thinking about what feedback, think about all of the stuff we talked about in ARC 1. Think about my what to do, my scanning, my radar. My fashion choices. I'm taking attendance here, by the way, just so you all know that's what's happening. thoughts. Now imagine you're gonna send me an email, 2019 me an email of some glows and grows. Go ahead and just take the next, let's say 2 minutes for y'all to craft that email on that 4th page. I don't know why, but I'm seeing grows, and that's just impossible.
You already gave the penalty.
Huh?
You already gave the penalty.
About 15 more seconds, and then we're gonna trade Spar. Okay, folks. So I'm gonna have you share your drafted feedback with the person next to you. As you're looking it over, I want you to focus your feedback on what do you think the the perceived intent will be. So looking at the balance of the glows versus the grows, even the tone, you need to narrate a little bit because we were typing this versus we were handwriting this versus typing. That's fine. But what tone does this give? Does this feel supportive? Does this feel like y'all are trying to have a gotcha moment? And so go ahead and trade it with your partner. Look it over and spar.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm okay.
People say that, like, hey, I should this too. And because of that, I
That was a cartoon.
like, she didn't have to do something like cultural and noticing what's out there, noticing things, but then you have to think backwards in time, like what were all the right things that happened. One thing I really like.
Wait, go ahead and bring it back up here in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You can trade those shapers back if you still have your partners. Before we close out, what are some of our key takeaways based on looking at our partners' feedback, based on even just this quick practice of giving feedback? What are some takeaways that we've got? Feel free to jump in.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that's really hard if you're only in there for 5 or 10 minutes is to realize all the good stuff that happened in all the classes up till then. So like kids clearly knew what to do. You didn't have to do all the things because you'd already done that. But if you're just in there trying to jot things down, there were things to fix. And I didn't see like all the good stuff unless I can imagine backwards. And so that can be really hard sometimes.
Shelby, the case.
For me, because I am a verbal learner, visual learner. I really like that you had the packet up, which has the directions in there. And also you had your dot cam up, so students, like, of course you can say they have 5 minutes, but if they're actually seeing the 5-minute countdown,
Yes.
they know where they should be in that time period. And then also, while you were talking, you gave a few nonverbal directions to students and a few nonverbal feedback, so it's very least invasive, so you didn't have a blow up reading.
One of the things I found myself doing that is something that I always do when I go in for an observation is the first thing I do is count the number of students. And I write that number down, so then it's very easy to give, like 80% of students were on task because there were 2 kids off, and if there's 10 kids, that's 8 out of 10.
Sorry. I think I was also realizing when I was handing my feedback to Emily to look at, how helpful it would be for me as like a person taking notes to give the feedback in an email instead of in a post-it note. Like I had like question marks around things that like would seem very snarky if I just handed this to Garner as feedback and could be taken really poorly. And so like thinking about like, if you do plan on leaving a post-it note instead of sending an email, like think about the tone in which you're writing. You can rewrite the post-it note before you leave it, because when we were talking about like that perceived intent, I know why I wrote a question mark. It was because I had a question. But if I put like post-it note question mark, where is clipboard on a post-it note and then handed that to Garner, like the impact of that is not the intent of it. And so thinking about editing ourselves as we give feedback is also important.
One thing I want to name that's not been explicitly stated yet is that we have a number of like new to KIPP or first year teachers here in the building. And so I want to name that like your feedback is so valuable. Your feedback is so incredibly valuable. Like getting into those classes, like there's not a single teacher in this space who is exempt from feedback or who cannot grow, and your feedback will help them grow, okay? And so like, please, please, please get into that room, give that feedback, like give the glow and the grow feedback, like, and even if you're like, well, I can't yet get to the content-based feedback, and most of it is still in that ARC 1, great, do that, because I assure you, like veteran teachers, the one, like, those moves actually do start to fall to the wayside, and so it's a great reminder to like continue to firm up those things as well. So 100%, like, I know it also can feel overwhelming and like tiring. You're like, I feel like your feedback is so crucial and it's so valuable, and I wanted to just like name that before we close out here. Aaron, then Marina, then more.
One of the things that I ask for is that the feedback be given to me on a sticky note, and the reason why is because I collect all of those sticky notes and I put them in a notebook. So when we get to the 8 stages of the marathon, when we get to the dark times and we really start to get down on ourselves as teachers, as we have a tendency to do, I go back to that notebook and I look at the glows that my colleagues have given me, and it lifts my spirits and it reminds me, hey, I've done well before and these strategies work, go back to them.
I really appreciate that we're all practicing different types of observations, and that this is the one that we're doing that's not meant to be valuative in nature. It is meant to be, like upholding each other and seeing things that we do that sometimes the teacher doesn't see, and it gets difficult sometimes to remember, oh, I am good at X, Y, Z. That's not what I'm centering my mind on. I'm constantly criticizing myself. So this is a really great practice, so I want to thank you for that.
I think very quickly to Garner's point of like everybody's feedback is valuable. If you're like, I don't know what kind of feedback I would give, I don't know what I'm looking for, do observations with your coach, do them with Matt, do them with Garner, anybody, do them with another teacher. But like Matt and Garner and Taylor, I'm sure, I haven't done it with you before, but I know I've done co-observations with Matt and Garner before. It's really helpful, especially if you're looking to expand your practice on specific things.
And if you're like, it is Friday and it is sixth block, and you're like, oh, I'm at this point fried, grab somebody who's planning on that too, and like go and pop into classrooms.
When you're getting old, you start thinking.
That will never happen.
Yeah, okay.
You start thinking of, I'm talking about myself. You start thinking that you know everything. This thing reminds you that you don't.
Absolutely. No.
is very
Beard
important
used
for
to
that.
look like
100%. Yes, thank you. So I do want to go ahead and close us out here in my session, and just name a couple of things. At the beginning, we talked about what did a truly excellent classroom, what did it look like, feel like, sound like. Us being able to get into our classrooms allows us to norm on that so much better than us doing it on our own. Teaching is not a one person show. It takes an entire school, an entire village. And so by getting into each other's classes, we're then able to get to this idea of consistency, which is what transforms average into excellence. And so, looking ahead, after fall break, you'll get more details regarding ARC 2, which will be data-driven instruction and those criteria for success. You'll get all of like the quarter 2 observation push details. You'll get the survey, all of that. And then like more support, more feedback, more consistency. In terms of the rest of today, finalizing grades, make sure you use. Don't know why that's how I spelled use.
Yeah.
Idea.
You all say.
Ensure that you use the accommodating grading scale.
She just quoted the internet, that's why.
And then begin working on those GDPs that Matt's going to be rolling out in the next session. I tap comp, y'all, so I don't have no idea what I'm doing. Thank you all so much. And look forward to everything.
Hey, listen up. We're gonna go 3-minute break. I'm gonna push through. I've abbreviated the session a little bit, so it's gonna go a little bit past 10.